when you write the manuscript, you have to have a working title, some kind of title. The publisher later makes a title like Toyota Kata. It comes from the publisher because they know what will sell better. But on the manuscript, it said something else, and it didn't say Toyota. It said Beyond What We Can See. This was my working title. And it means two things. It was kind of a game with words. Number one, Beyond What We Can See meant what this book is about is the things that you don't see when you're at Toyota. If you go and you can look all day and you can see Kanban and Teams and U-shaped cells and andon lights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all of this is very useful. But what you won't see is how the managers think and act. This is invisible. And in fact, it's difficult to find out because if you ask the managers, how do you think and act? How do you learn this? How do you teach others? They don't answer at Toyota. They go, And I thought maybe there was a memo, a message. If you tell Mike from the University of Michigan the secret, you have to commit suicide, you know. But actually, wherever you work, we have habits. We have a habitual way of managing, and we're not really conscious of it. So if I ask you, how do you manage every day? You might say, oh, I have a meeting every morning at 9 o'clock, etc. But the actual thinking patterns and acting patterns are probably invisible to you. So the working title was Beyond What We Can See when we look at Toyota. But the play on words with the title was, it's also a way of leading people, a way of managing people that allows you to do what Giorgio was talking about, which is to achieve things that we think we can't achieve, to achieve things that are beyond the horizon. They are so difficult to reach that we don't know how to get there. It's uncertain how to get there. And with this style of managing that Toyota is using, it's not perfect, but they are more successful than we are at achieving things that lie beyond what we can see. And once the book was written, we started messing around with the techniques, with the way of managing, and what a pleasure to work with teams to see what we can achieve. At the beginning, the team is maybe very timid or scared and saying, oh, I don't think we can do this. But if coached properly, they can achieve a remarkable objective. And once they have achieved one remarkable objective, the team is like this. What's the next objective, right? And soon we have this power in the organization. And so that's kind of what excites me about this subject and what I'd like to share with you today, if I could. So the other thing that is nice about what we're talking about today is that it works well with all the existing lean tools, the existing lean things that you have done. I don't want to come here today and say, oh, all the lean stuff we did before, oops, incorrect, throw this away, here is now the correct answer. That's not my point at all. Actually, we're talking about a context, a managerial context, within which the lean tools and practices that we already have and that we already know about work even better. Maybe they actually work the way they're supposed to work at Toyota. So let me make a couple of quick drawings here. So, what we did is we tried to answer two questions with this particular research. We knew about a lot of Toyota practices, as I already mentioned, but we weren't getting the continuous improvement, the constant improvement, the adaptation that Toyota gets. And even Toyota is maybe more successful at achieving challenging goals more often than we are. They'll set a goal and reach it maybe not all the time, but more often than we do. It's kind of a surprise. And so we knew something was missing. We have the lean tools, but we're not getting the same results. We also knew, this is like 2004, perhaps, year 2004. We also knew that it was a part of their management system. Jim Womack, my colleague, and a few others were saying Toyota manages differently. But we didn't know much about how Toyota is managing. So for instance, you would hear things like Toyota managers ask questions, right? This is a very general statement. It's like a principle. Toyota managers ask questions. We tried to do this, so if you say to a manager, please manage by asking questions, what the manager does is says, I have the solution in my head, please guess. No, no, okay, right? And the employee, of course, is standing here going, okay, I have to guess what my manager is thinking, and if I get the right answer, then we can go, right? So it's not quite what Toyota's doing, right? So we had to go and figure out about Toyota's management system, and as I mentioned, you can't just ask them because they can't answer the question. So we had to take a deeper look. So what we have, if I may draw a picture, is we have these lean tools and techniques, practices, and they're surrounded by a particular way of managing, a particular way of thinking and acting if we have a manager and an employee, right? There's a particular relationship there. And so what the research looked at was question number one, what is this? What is this context? And I think we've answered that question pretty well. There's more to learn. But the second question in the research, and the second question that's addressed in the book is, okay, if this is the pattern of thinking and acting in the managers at Toyota, how can we develop similar patterns of thinking and acting in other organizations? And I think this is actually the more interesting question. You know, what is Toyota doing? Do you have the bracelets in the United States? We have a bracelet, and it's "What would Jesus do?" Do you know this one? It's if you are religious, it's to remind you you're in a situation, what would Jesus do, right? We think in the lean community we have a bracelet that says, what would Toyota do? You know, always a situation, well, what would Toyota do, right? So maybe not so interesting. So question one, what is this managerial system at Toyota, or process, or way of thinking? Question number two, how can we develop a similar way of thinking in other organizations? Because what we did is, if this is our organization, we took these lean tools and techniques, right? Lean tools and practices, but we put them in a completely different management system that operates in a completely different way. And when I look at it now, the different management system, you take this, put it here, it can't work. There's no way. There's no way. It could, if the thinking is so different, it won't work. So how do we take this kind of thinking and develop it here? That's kind of what we're talking about. What Toyota's trying to do is to develop a system, a habit in all of its people. And this is a job forever, right? It never goes away. It's not like Giorgio will coach me until I'm at a certain skill level, and then he doesn't have to coach me anymore. Even the best athletes in the world still have a coach, right? But they're trying to develop a systematic, scientific habit for achieving challenging objectives and goals in all of their people. I think because of this, there are some changes going on in the lean community. Now, what I'm going to show you right now is my opinion, but it's something to think about. And maybe we can call this the 20th century lean from the last century, which is a long time ago now, right? It's like 13 years ago. And maybe this is 21st century lean, the lean for the future, right? And I think in the 20th century, the improvement was periodic. Maybe we do a workshop. Toyota does workshops too, but this is a secondary technique. It's not their primary improvement technique. So maybe we do a workshop in your department, and next month we'll do a workshop in your department, and so forth. It's okay, but it's not really continuous improvement. And we were thinking Toyota's trying to improve. Okay, we made a great improvement in the workshop, but of course in a short time it slips back, and we won't be back here for a long time. But if we have a different objective, our objective is to change the habits, to change the way of thinking and managing in the organization. Will this work for changing habits? You want to learn the guitar. So this month we will practice for 2 days, or 3 days, or 5 days. Then we will put the guitar away for a month or two, and then we will take it out again. We're never going to learn. We're never going to learn, right? So one thing that seems to be happening in the lean community is that it's becoming a daily activity. Something that has to happen every day. Maybe not so much of the day. In fact, there are a lot of rules about practice that say if you practice too much, it's not so good. Practice until you get tired, then stop practicing and do something else, right? All right, so we're trying to develop a habit. We're going from periodic to daily. Another aspect of lean, at least as I know about it, I don't know so much about lean in Italy, is that it was led by the lean staff. So many companies have a lean department, special lean department, or lean staff. And it's not a line function, it's off to the side. It often reports to a vice president, maybe to the president in a smaller company. Now, if we want to practice every day, everywhere in the organization, it has to be the whole organization to create this horsepower, to create the strength in the organization that we can say, whatever we want to achieve, we can achieve it. It has to be everywhere. So if we have a lean staff, but we want to practice everywhere daily, it won't work. So there's another shift going on, which is it's shifting to middle managers. And they are the coaches every day. That's a significant shift, because until now, the middle manager could say, oh, time to improve, my lean person will come and do this for me, right? And I will just keep going the way I'm always going. So we actually have to change their thinking. And there are some studies that suggest the middle managers have more influence on the culture of the organization than anyone else in the organization. The leaders can set direction, the leaders can set a particular tone, but every day I'm interacting with my manager. And I think this is where I'm picking up my habits when I'm working. We have students at the university who are finishing and then to go get a job. And University of Michigan is a pretty good school, so sometimes they have more than one job offer. Now, how many consulting companies here, just to be, right? All right, not so many. So they often have an offer from like a McKinsey, Accenture, from the big consulting companies, and they have an offer from Spesso. And McKinsey is saying, we'll pay you $90,000, right? Right at the beginning, fresh student coming out of school. And Spesso is saying, we will pay you, engineer, $50,000, right? So the students come to me and they say, which should I choose? I really want to work in the factory, but $90,000 to be a consultant. Wow, this is very, very tempting. And what we tell them is your first job is very important, not for the money, but for the habits you will learn. Pick the company where you will learn the best habits, because the way of thinking and acting that your managers are going to teach you in your company will be with you for a long time. You know how hard it is to change a habit later that you already have? So the middle managers in the organization create the habit of thinking. How does this manager react when you say, this is a situation? He says, here's a goal. How would you like to achieve this goal? And you answer. How they answer and what they have you do will affect how you work, and it affects the power of the company. In the 20th century, I think lean focused on eliminating waste. And I think in the lean community, we made it too easy for ourselves. Because if you go to a senior executive, okay, and you say, we want to do lean, and he says, well, he or she says, what's lean about? What is this, right? And we say, we eliminate non-value-added activity, we reduce cost, and we improve quality. All senior managers will say, yes, we want to do this, right? That's a very easy sell, right? Now let's imagine a different scenario. There's a senior manager and he says, okay, tell me about this lean thing that you propose that we do in our company. What is lean? Oh, well, it's a process of changing the habits of our middle managers so that they think and act a different way so that we can work more scientifically in improving every day. From 100%, 40%. And that's okay. I think that's okay. Because not every company has to do this. Not every company has to do like Toyota. There are many ways to be successful, right? But I think we're going from eliminating waste to what is our strategic objective? What will make us beat the competition? This becomes the focus. So we have a company, for example, that says, they make kitchens, right? The cabinets for the kitchen. And the habit in this company was to make one kind of cabinet for a few hours, change over, make a different kind of cabinet. So you have the cabinet for the sink, you have the hanging cabinet in the kitchen, maybe the corner cabinet with the turning part. And the president of the company said, our customer is buying one kitchen, but we are making 20 sink cabinets, 20 hanging cabinets, 20 corner cabinets, and then later when you buy the kitchen, we say, oh, you want one of these? We take it from the inventory, and you need one of these, and we take it from the inventory. And the president, this has to come from the leadership. This won't happen from the factory alone. The leader says, you know what? We need to build the kitchen you want when you want it. Not extra cabinet. You order kitchen, we make it exactly the way you want right now. Of course, everyone in the factory says, oh, it's crazy, change over time, all these things. For 18 months, the president drove the company in this direction. They used all sorts of lean techniques, but you use the lean techniques to help you achieve your objective. In 18 months, they achieved the objective, and now when the customer orders the kitchen, they don't go to finished inventory. They say, give us the specifications for your kitchen. They give it to assembly. Assembly pulls the half-ready parts and makes your kitchen and puts it right on the truck. At the end of the assembly line is the truck. And 18 months ago, everybody said, no way. This company now has an advantage. These companies are walking around going, what do you want to improve? Maybe here, maybe here, maybe here. Oh, here's something that I think we should improve, and here's something that I think we should improve. This is teaching a way of thinking that I think is incorrect. I used to do this too, by the way. So, I made the same mistake. But if we want to teach a way of thinking for our managers and for our people, the first question is, okay, before we start improving, where do we want to go? What is our objective? How can we beat the competition? So I think there's a shift going on here. And finally, I think in the 20th century, a big focus on Toyota. What would Toyota do? And I think the focus in lean is shifting to what do we need to do? Every company is different, and I think it's perfectly fine to look at Toyota and say, very interesting, but then maybe push this away a little bit and say, what objectives do we have? What kind of habits do we want to develop? Lean habits in our organization. I don't think we can be successful just copying Toyota. Toyota is not copying. Toyota is using the lean techniques to achieve tough objectives that it sets for itself. So I think we can learn from Toyota, but we have to go beyond just going to Toyota on a trip and saying, look, for the Kanban system, we will put the same Kanban system in. So anyway, I think that's kind of a shift going on. As I mentioned, this is just my opinion. So what I'd like to talk about is the improvement kata mindset, or a way of getting better at achieving goals and meeting challenges by teaching the creative process in the organization, all right? And maybe I should say right from the beginning, I think if we say to you or to senior managers, we want to develop people's capability, it's not such an exciting concept. I don't know what it's like in Italy, but in the United States right now, people stay in a company maybe 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then they go to another company. So if we say to the leader, we want to develop people's capability, they're going, wait a minute, I'm going to put all this money and time into this person and they're going to leave, right? The cool thing about what Toyota is doing is it is developing this capability as part of their everyday management process. It's not a separate training process. There's no extra money spent on this process. In other words, the manager is teaching every day because that's what the manager does. And the students, the people working in the organization, are practicing on real problems. I think if you play a sport, you practice in a separate situation and then you play the game. What Toyota is doing is practicing in the game, which is excellent because now we're not wasting money and we're not wasting time. Now, if you're a beginner, you'll be practicing on something a little smaller, of course, right? You will play a very simple song. An advanced person will play, I don't know, Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven on the guitar, right? You're ready, so or some other song. So don't think of this as an additional effort. This is a drawing that's in the book. It shows a person working with PDCA or iteratively experimenting from a current condition to a desired next target condition. So you see, it's not just eliminating waste, it's saying, hey, where do we want to go next? What do we need to achieve next? A Toyota person in the research said to me, Mike, you Americans are always saying, what can we improve? He says, at Toyota, we don't say this. At Toyota, the question is, what do we need to improve? And he said the only way you can answer the question, what do we need to improve, is to first have an objective. So I put this drawing in the book of the person working like a scientist, experimenting, step-by-step PDCA, working very hard to get to this, as Giorgio said, challenging target condition. I showed this illustration to a vice president in a manufacturing company, and he added these other people. And I think he did a wonderful job. It's a better drawing than mine. He said, before I did Toyota Kata or the improvement Kata, I thought my job as the vice president was to solve problems. People come to me in the morning, they have problems, and I was like, okay, what can we do to solve this problem? He said, that's my job. And he says, now my job is to make these people problem solvers, to make them scientists in working toward tough objectives. That's my job. They solve the problems. And actually, the vice president has the harder job. It's very difficult to be a coach, very difficult to be a trainer. But I think the illustration captures today's subject very well. So when I was talking about the habit that Toyota is developing in its people to be scientific, it's not to assume we know, it's to assume that we don't know, and that we have to figure it out through experimenting. So here's another familiar, maybe not optical illusion, but another illusion. We know how Kanban works. We have all gone to Japan or to seminars or read the books, and we know how Kanban works. There are many books about Kanban or a pull system. And so for years, I would put the pull system in at the client company, and it didn't work. We wouldn't say it didn't work. Everybody said it worked. The company said it worked, and the consultant says, there it is, it works. But of course, the supervisor has a schedule in the back pocket, and this is how we're really running the process, right? So we know how Kanban works, what the mechanics of a Kanban system are. So what happens is we make an implementation plan. We are going to implement Kanban. But the interesting thing to me now, today, is we have no idea what will make your Kanban system work. And the problems and obstacles and things we will have to do to make your Kanban system work are completely different from what we'll have to do to make your Kanban system work. So if we stand here and say we want to implement a Kanban system, we can see only this far. The book gives us an illusion that we can see all the way down here to the picture of our already implemented Kanban system. We can maybe draw this picture as a goal, but as we stand here, in the Toyota way of thinking, we go, okay, we know almost nothing. That's what we'd like to have. Let's begin our experimenting. And that's a completely different way of working than to say, okay, we're going to implement a Kanban system. You make the supermarket with the FIFO, right? You make the cards. You train the material handlers so that we'll have a route that they go on. You train the operators so that they know where to put the card, when to put the card, and then we'll have our Kanban system. This will never work. You see the different thinking? The 5 questions? This is essentially what the manager is asking along the way. He's saying, okay, what's your target condition? Where do you want to be? The person has to know where they're going. Okay, what's your current condition? Where are you now? Please describe for me where are you now. Yeah? Number 3, what obstacles are in your way? Boom, 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 boom. Well, I see this is preventing us from getting there. And then a little magical question, which one obstacle? Well, I made an action plan for all the obstacles. No. You are making predictions about things you don't know. Which one obstacle do you want to address right now? Okay, this obstacle. What is your next step? The next experiment. The next step. And then when can we see what you've learned from taking that step? Because this step is an experiment. And if the employee says, oh, next week, it's too long. The coach says, can we test this idea today? No, it's impossible. We have German engineers near Stuttgart to test any idea, 2 weeks. We have to make the part out of titanium, I don't know, and it takes 2 weeks. Today, 24 hours. So the same German engineers that said, no, we can't test an idea, it takes 2 weeks. Today, 24 hours. Cardboard, glue, whatever. Just test it really quickly, because you can't see further into the darkness until you test that idea. And when can we see what we've learned from taking that step? Same questions over and over and over again. Same pattern to navigate the gray zone. There is perhaps a need to change our habits, which is very difficult to do. Now, what would happen if you practiced folding your arms the other way every day? Today it felt awkward the second time. But if you practice this every day for maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, what would happen? Becomes a habit, becomes natural, right? Okay. So the point is, we humans have the ability to change, to deliberately develop new habits. And that's what the Improvement Kata and Coaching Kata are about. We may think that all the skill is innate. This is how I grew up, thinking he's skillful, talented, me, maybe not so much, and this is what we are born with. But what we're realizing now, and you may have read in books and articles, is that that's not 100% correct. We can actually rewire our thinking and habits by deliberately practicing a different behavior pattern. Once the pattern you're practicing enters your unconscious, it gets smoother and faster and becomes a normal habitual way you operate. This is precisely what Toyota's trying to do with its management system. And it took us so long to see it. You can change the culture of an organization this way, and what I'm interested in is I think you can even change the culture of a society this way. And we're looking forward today, when you watch a political program on TV in the United States, the politician comes up to the microphone and he says, this is the solution to the problem, and when we implement this solution, this is what will happen. And I'm waiting for the day the politician comes up and says, let me go back. This is our goal. This is where we all agree we want to be. We don't know what we will need to do to get there, but we know a good way of working to get there. Unfortunately, this politician will never be elected today, but we're looking forward to the day when the politicians speak this way, because they don't know. Nobody knows what's waiting for us. So essentially, the coach is trying to keep the learner in this corridor of thinking and acting that is scientific. And so the coach will ask those questions, and if the learner is out, then the job of the manager or the coach is to get the person back in. I want you to work this way as you work toward your goal. And there are a number of different ways to do it. If the employee is out, sometimes it's best to just let them fail, right? This is maybe the best learning of all, as long as it's quick. What's your next step? And you say your next step, and the coach goes, I don't think this is a very good design, but we're going to take this experiment. The experiment is being done offline, no problem. Let the person fail. Then when they fail, you say, oops, what did you find out? Oh, there's a hole there. I shouldn't do that. Excellent. Or if the manager says, ooh, Mike is not working correctly, and it's going to be a big problem if he keeps working this way, then the coach will give procedural advice. So it's a different kind of coaching. A lot of people think the Toyota manager is only allowed to ask questions. No way. We watch Toyota managers say, do this. Procedure. So what they do, and it's just like any teaching, it's kind of a 3-step approach. See, compare, instruct. First, you have to see how your learner is thinking. You have to find out. If you're my coach, you have to find out, how is Mike thinking? How can you find out how I'm thinking? Ask me a question. So you'll see the Toyota manager saying, Mike, take a look at this problem and what do you propose? And then they do something kind of funny, they just shut up. In America, the manager will keep talking. And what I want you to do is I want you to watch the process and I want to write down all the steps, blah, 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 blah. And the Toyota manager says, please take a look at the problem, tell me what you think. And the employee says, what should I do? And says, well, go have a look. Because if I keep talking and tell them what to do, they're just going to do what I think. But if you say, Mike, take a look, report back. And you say, Mike, what did you see? And I go, this is what I think we should do. You go, now I see how Mike is thinking. Number 2, you compare how I'm thinking with how you want me to think. So the manager has to know the kata first, right? So the corridor, you compare, how is Mike thinking? Is he here or is he here? And then number 3, you introduce a course correction if necessary. It's the same thing that she's doing. She says, hey, play a bit. You look, and she sees how he says, oh, you're holding it wrong. Let me show you. Step 3, let me show you how to hold it. So it's not just asking questions. It's much more complicated than that, and it's much tougher for the coach. Look how good the coach needs to be. Look how skillful the coach needs to be. They have to know how to hold the bow. They have to know how to work with people. They have to know how to ask questions this way. And we have to know how to shut up. This is maybe the most difficult for some of us. I know it was hard for me. You know, I used to be, sometimes I consult, not very much, I'm more of a researcher, but you consult and you come in and people want you to tell them what to do. This is what Toyota does. Today, a company says, Mike, here's the situation, what should we do? And I say, I don't know. What's your goal? Where do you want to go? And if I knew the answer and I told you, I would be robbing you of the opportunity to practice. All I can do, if I'm a consultant, is to accompany you on the journey and teach you the way of thinking. I will not give you answers. Because if I do, it's interesting, inside Toyota, you actually get in trouble as a manager if you solve the problem for your subordinate. So if Francesco is having a problem and the manager says, you know, if you just turn it this way, it will work better, right? His boss will say, great, you've solved one problem, you feel like a hero, you've missed an opportunity to develop the power of our organization by saying, Francesco, what do you think? How would you approach this problem? And then train Francesco to become a strong problem solver. You've actually hurt the company by giving him the answer. I'm not saying you should do this, but it's kind of, notice the difference in the surrounding thinking. Or the vice president who said, I thought my job was to solve the problems when they come to me, right? Different way of thinking. So key points. Mindset is the basis of our behavior and organization's culture. Number 2, our mindset can be changed, thank goodness. Number 3, a task in improvement, adaptation, and innovation is to develop habitual mental circuits that are effective for navigating gray zones by practicing a scientific routine like the improvement kata every day under coaching guidance. And again, the lean tools, all still there, all still used. So in conclusion, I think what the improvement kata gives us is something to hang on to in the uncertainty zone. If I observe teams working, and maybe you can do this too in your own company, if we make the plan, like the action item list, we get a certain sense of confidence and comfort from this list. We hang on to this list because as humans, we need something to hang on to. Now, if you as a manager or a leader are going to come into your organization and say, you know what, that list, the plan you make is only a hypothesis. Don't get too attached to your plan. We are taking away the thing that they're hanging on to get a certain sense of comfort. You have to give them something else. And I think what Toyota's doing is giving people a method or a routine to follow so that instead of saying, I'm comfortable because I have my plan and I'm going to implement the plan, instead they hang on to the improvement kata, giving us the ability to say, that's where I want to go. I have a plan, but I'm not 100% sure what's going to come. We're going to have to adapt and learn and innovate along the way, but I know how to do that because I've practiced that. So the confidence comes from this instead of this. I think that's fairly elegant. So basically, as I mentioned, what Toyota, I think, is trying to do with its managerial system is to increase people's comfort and ability to, navigate these territories like the vice president drew the picture. I started the presentation with that picture. So one conclusion is becoming kind of clear. We're not going to be successful, I've already mentioned this, by copying Toyota's solution. What we should be copying is how Toyota develops solutions, which is actually a universal, not Toyota-specific, science-based approach. I think it's funny in these pictures from the 1950s, the person copying is always the chubby person, right? And he looks like John F. Kennedy or something. What are they trying to say? Another conclusion is that if we only periodically conduct training events or only episodically or periodically work on improvement, and the rest of the time it's business as usual. So if you look at this diagram, let's say these are work days, and here we are making an improvement. Then it's just work, 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 work. Here we make an improvement. What neuroscience tells us is what you're actually teaching is business as usual. This is my problem with the folding of the arms. Because I only practice folding my arms the other way when I give this seminar, but not the rest of the time, I'm not learning anything. It's going to have to be a daily activity. And the lean staff can't do that. Now, if you're in the lean staff doesn't have to worry. The manager needs a coach. Someone has to coach the manager. I think it's a perfect job for the lean staff. So it's not like we're saying bye-bye lean staff, but we want to change their focus. So the question I'd like to leave you with is where do you and your team want to be next? I.e., in other words, what challenges are you trying to meet, and what's your kata for getting there? What are you and your team practicing to get better at achieving your challenging goals?